I think it's very dangerous. I think it's something that we fall into almost instinctively. There's clearly a spiritual aspect to it. Jesus is cool, but I don't know about those people, that follow him.
We're going to go find a church where people aren't as hypocritical, or people aren't as, where there aren't any gossips. And it's like,
Good luck.
yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reputation is what men think of you. Character is what God knows of you. And I am much more concerned about what God knows about me than what men think about me. Well, welcome everybody to this episode of Sundays in Side Quest. This is a faith-based episode, and the question that we're asking today is, when does a prayer request turn into gossip? Have you ever seen it turn from genuine concern to all of a sudden here we're speculating, and it's something that can tear apart someone's life or even destroy churches? So I'm your host, Keith Harris. Today our guest is Troy Pound. Troy is joining us from Oregon. Troy is a longtime friend and a previous pastor, and you currently own and run Be Healthy Counseling Services there in Forest Grove.
That is
Oregon,
correct.
right?
That's where I'm at today. Yep.
All right. Yeah.
This is where the magic happens.
So I thought this would be a great episode for you and I to talk about, because not only do we both have pastoring experience. I know you've been a lead pastor, you've been a worship leader, you've been youth guy. You've got years of experience, and you've seen what gossip can do to churches, and quite frankly, probably have been the victim of that same thing yourself.
Oh, yeah.
The counseling side of things, I think maybe gives you some insight into what's going on in people's heads and minds when these things are happening. So I thought this would be a good conversation for you and I to have, because I know how easy it is for someone to move from good intentions to, suddenly, as soon as we start speculating, before you know it, you're filling in all kinds of blanks. And I think the Bible's pretty clear. Once you start doing that, you're talking gossip. You're slinging some slander around.
Absolutely.
How dangerous do you think that is? I mean, do we take it as seriously as we should?
I think it's very dangerous. I think it's something that we fall into almost instinctively. There's clearly a spiritual aspect to it. I think there could be even a sort of an instinctual one as well. And we can find ourselves in the middle of saying things we shouldn't be saying.
Have you seen that really kind of devolve and turn into something that becomes damaging to people and to relationships?
Yeah, especially when in a faith-based church setting, when somebody says something or they hear something that's being passed around about them and that's not true, or maybe even if it is true and that it shouldn't be being passed around. It's very hurtful, it often pushes those people away from community, and even it can create some wounds, I think, emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they talk about the bad experiences they've had at churches, a lot of it can be traced back to either, like you said, either untrue rumors, or even things that started out as, hey, I need help with this, that got turned into things that got spread to people that didn't need to know, right? There's a difference. I think people want to be vulnerable with their spiritual support groups, whether that's with pastors or in a life group. So and when they are vulnerable in those ways, they're thinking, okay, I'm sharing this because I need prayer, which is a good thing, right? I'm sharing this because I need somebody. Maybe there's somebody who's gone through something like that before, and they have insights that they can share with me that would be helpful. What they weren't expecting is that someone in that group was going to go out and begin, did you hear about Susie? My gosh, Susie, I can't believe. Did you hear about what their kid did? And that can become no longer the thing that they were looking for, which was the support and the help, but the very thing that takes a bad situation and makes it so much worse. I think it's so apropos. I want to read this verse. I think this fits with what we're talking about. This is out of James chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. It says, "So also the tongue is a small part of the body, and yet it boasts of great things. So how great a forest is set aflame by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, the very world of iniquity. The tongue is set among our members as that which defies the entire body and sets on fire the course of our life, and is set on fire by hell." I mean, what I love about James is he doesn't mince words, right?
Yeah.
He just lets you have it. He says, "Listen, man, this is a tool of Satan that he uses to not just destroy the individual lives. This defiles the entire body. It's not just the individual. I think it can defile an entire church as well. You start getting
Absolutely.
these things flying around."
It makes me think of a few years back. There was a couple of kids in, I think it was Central or Southern Oregon, that threw a smoke bomb. You might remember this. Out, it was dry in the summertime, and they ended up burning down millions and millions of acres.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just one
It
little,
went up by Multnomah Falls and stuff or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
just like one little thing, Going back a second, when we were talking about how gossip hurts people, I find that when I talk with people in my day-to-day work and this comes up, I don't usually hear people have a problem with Jesus. It's not it, it's not Jesus, it's the people that are following
Right.
him. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus is cool, but I don't know about those people, that follow him.
Well, it's like and this happens in every church. I mean, there is no church that's immune to this. I mean,
Right.
because it happens so easily. It happens so quickly, and you don't even realize it. I mean, I would venture to say that, I try to be very non-gossipy, but I would say that you and I have fallen victim to becoming a gossip. Just because, I'm not thinking of anything specifically, but I'm saying just because I know how easy of a trap it is to fall into. You truly are. You truly think, yeah, I'm sharing something with someone because I want us to pray for them. I want the benefit of a body of believers praying for someone and what they're going through, because I do believe that God responds to the prayers of his people. But how easily it just goes south. You mentioned something about how it's kind of instinctual.
Mm-hmm.
I think on the inside, I never intended to fill in extra blanks. And sometimes it's not until it's repeated back to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've told things to my wife. I've said, "Oh yeah, this person's really struggling," and because she's involved in ministry the same way I am, and when she hears me on the phone with somebody, "Oh, who was that? Oh yeah, that was so and so, and they're going through this." I'm not violating any confidence or anything, just telling her what the situation is, and then she'll repeat it back to me, and then I'll realize I've found that when she's talking or she's asking me questions, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I don't remember saying that. I don't remember them saying that to me. Is that what I just communicated to you? Did I accidentally or instinctually fill in blanks that weren't given to me? And if everybody's doing that, then by the time you've shared, it's the telephone game.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was just going to say, that's like when because sometimes people will quote things that I've said to them, like in a positive way that's influenced them, like in my work. And I'll be like, dude, I never said that. Like you, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'll take credit for it. But they're filling in blanks within their hearing. And so,
oh yeah.
So it's happening like what you're saying. It's happening on both sides, I think, on the speaking and the hearing. And you brought up an interesting point, Keith, that if every church or any organization, actually, not just churches, if this is a problem, that's something, right? It's not just your church or my work or whatever. It's just where people are,
I know that when people say, well, we're going to go find a new church, and you've probably had this. Well, we just haven't made connections in this church, or we're going to go find a church where people aren't as hypocritical, or people aren't as, where there aren't any gossips. And it's like,
good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I made the joke yesterday from the pulpit. I said, man, if you have found the perfect church, don't you dare join it, because you'll ruin it.
You'll wreck it. Yeah. I was thinking, as we were talking about this, I was thinking about how, like, one of the things that's been a challenge for me since I started the counseling work full time, especially with prayer chain and church, is we have this thing called HIPAA. Most people have heard of it, just even through their medical care. And I have to be very careful what I share with other people when I've heard something. And as a matter of fact, I have to get a release of information signed to share information. If I don't have that permission, then I'm breaching a sacred trust, but I can also get sued. And so sometimes when I am like, I see the prayer requests go out about, Aunt Martha's boil on her right butt cheek or something, I'm like, did we check with Grandma Martha about that before we talked about her malady?
Can you imagine if everybody had to get a release? Could you sign this release so I could pray for you at
I'm
the
like,
church?
I don't know. They're sick and they need prayer. That's all I can say. And even then, I feel like I'm stretching it. It's
Well,
it's
and just your
interesting.
knowledge of that HIPAA and what is a violation, and the average Joe doesn't think about that. They're just thinking, oh well, I saw this person struggling with this, or I
Yeah.
here, oh, they need prayer,
Right.
right? But it's yeah, it's so easily it gets away from you. I put together this was for a sermon that I did, man, this is probably a year ago now, where we were walking through the book of James, and we got to this verse where it says it's a spark, it's a forest flame that's set by hell. And I said, how easy, and I did this illustration, and I gathered some people up, and I said, okay, how easy is this for this to happen? And I talked about this idea of a friend circle. Everybody has a friend circle, right? You think about your friend circle, you probably have 2 or 3 people that are the closest to you, right? You're the ones that you hang out together, you watch games, maybe you go out and you do things together, your kids play together, whatever it is. There's usually this inner circle. And then you've got this outer circle where it gets a little bit bigger, and maybe you, as 2 or 3 close friends, each of you has some acquaintances. You get together as a larger group. So I think of it as you go camping with your inner circle, you go to a Super Bowl party with your outer circle,
Okay.
right? And then you've got the peripherals. The peripherals are, yeah, these are all people that we all know, and yeah, when we see them at church and we hang out with them, or they'll be the ones. There are hey men. Do you have a hey man? I had a hey man when I worked in at IDT in the high tech industry. It was a guy that we saw each other in the hallway all the time, and we would have superficial conversations. But to this day, I can't tell you his name.
You may never
Because
have known it.
Right. He
Yeah.
might have told me at some point, but I was like, "Hey, man." And he's like, "Hey, how was your weekend?" Oh, that kind of thing. So, your peripherals are the people that you all know, but you don't necessarily hang out with them. And
The Office should have done an episode on something like that. They could have made that
I
work.
bet you they probably have. Yeah. So, a friend circle is a good thing. It's a good thing to have. I mean, the Bible talks about koinonia. It talks about living life
Fellowship.
together. And so I don't want to pretend like we shouldn't have these things, but I do see that Satan perverts those things. And so let's say you've got the friend circle. You've come together for a good purpose, and you're helping each other out, and you're lifting up one another. But at some point, you're sharing something about somebody else. Maybe you heard something about one of these peripheral people. Oh, did you hear about Bob? Bob lost his job, and maybe Bob told you that, yeah, man, I'm going through a hard time. I lost my job. Maybe that's all you got. Bob lost his job. But now you're talking to your circle, and say, oh, did you hear about Bob? Yeah, he lost his job. Oh, what happened? I don't know, but I do know he was struggling with his boss. It's like, wait a minute, what did I just do?
Yep.
So
he got fired because he argued with his boss.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
And then somebody else is like, oh, yeah, he told me a story one time. His boss was a real jerk. Well, and then now somebody's filling in another blank. Oh, I bet you they had trouble. And by the time you're done talking about it, it started out as, we're going to pray for Bob. By the time we're done talking about it, it's Bob got fired. Him and his boss might have had a physical altercation, and somebody might go to jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and then what happens is, you continue talking about Bob. Then you go online. You see on Facebook somebody posts one of those weird cryptic posts. Bob goes on there and he's like, some people shouldn't be allowed to work with other people. And all of a sudden, what are we doing? It's like, oh, he's talking about his boss. He's talking about his manager. He's, we're filling in all the blanks.
Yep.
And so here we are. Now we're full on gossiping. And, as soon as we start speculating, we're full on gossiping. Well, at some point, somebody either in the inner circle or the outer circle feels bad about it, maybe identifies, hey, we've been talking a lot about Bob. Has anybody talked to Bob? It's like, oh, no. Well, I mean, he told me he lost his job, but we find out none of us really know anything. And somebody finally becomes the whistleblower. Somebody finally goes and says, well, I'm going to go ask Bob. And it's like, you go to Bob and say, "Oh, Bob, I heard you got fired from your job and you and your manager are having a really hard time." And Bob's like, "What? No. The position just went away. It was a temporary position. I knew that was going to happen. Well, who told you that? Well, so and so told me this." So this person becomes the whistleblower. And then as soon as it gets back to the rest of the friend group that this person blew the whistle, I don't know if you've seen this, but all of a sudden they kind of turn on each other. Everybody turns on the whistleblower. And before you know it, they get ostracized and they get kicked out of the friend group because they're like, "You betrayed our trust, and you went and told Bob. I told you that in confidence," and all. And so what happens is eventually that friend group kind of dissolves because of this whole thing about Bob. Oh, there's a movie. What about Bob? Right? Okay. Now, we can't make that our pop culture reference of the day because I just ruined it. But I just realized, an old Richard Dreyfuss movie.
We're going to baby step our ways through this gossip thing.
There you go.
You just need a puppet.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Have you ever used puppeting techniques in your
I have
counseling?
not, but I love that movie. I've thought about using the dynamite technique at the end with the time. Oh, I'm bound up in my feelings.
Bill Murray comes out with his own book. What is it? His own best-selling, death therapy or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, now I wish I hadn't have said the name of the movie. That would have been a perfect pop culture reference. But yeah. So anyway, this whole friend circle thing, I think Satan realizes he can destroy our koinonia by getting us to talk about things we don't know about, by getting us to gossip about a brother or sister in Christ. And somebody becomes a whistleblower. Before you know it, you've turned on the group. And I mean, I see it happen all the time. But it's amazing to me that there's so many people that don't think it can happen to them.
Right. I was thinking too, one of the things that stands out in those kind of situations is that it's usually that person who's like really growing and trying to practice wisdom and maturity that says, "Hey, we should just talk to the person, shouldn't we?"
Yeah. And then everybody else is like, why would we
Get out of here with
that
wisdom? Yeah.
Right.
That's not any
Or get out of
fun.
here with that conviction.
Yeah.
Well, how fun is it? I mean, why? It's I think we have to acknowledge how fun is it to basically gossip.
Well, we actually do get I believe I was reading some studies about this recently where we get a dopamine boost. We get a dopamine boost when we gossip. When we feel pleasure in something or we get some kind of enjoyment out of it. That's not all that dopamine does, but definitely we are experiencing a dopamine increase when we do that. We also, our oxytocin levels, which is a bonding hormone that we all have, when we are connecting with people and we're sharing information, I think it's like what you were saying, to connect it spiritually. It's a perverted way, maybe too strong of a word, but I don't know, a perverted way of connecting with others. And we can be doing it and not be aware that we're doing something that I think it's good for us to keep our eye on in ourselves. Like, am I trying to bond through sharing this information that I don't know is accurate or is unkind or untrue or just too personal to share, you know?
And I see that in all kinds of relationships. You've got somebody who shares a story. Maybe it's just a funny story. Well, you want to share your funny story too. You want to be bonded in it. So when you have somebody saying, "Oh, yeah, well, I heard this about," we're just going to continue to pick on Bob.
Yeah.
I heard this about Bob. Yeah, well, I know Bob. I've known Bob for years, and I've always known. And then you share your little tidbit.
I really know.
All of a sudden,
I'm bonded to him better than you are. Right. And now the chimps are pushing each other off the ladder, right?
That's funny. That's funny. That's Logan brought that up in one of our episodes. We were talking about the difference between Generation X and Generation Z.
Okay.
And he brought up the chimps on the ladder, and they get sprayed or whatever if they try to climb the ladder.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a second. I'm gonna have to go and find out.
The Lord's trying to tell you something about this ladder and the chimp thing, because I didn't know about that. Don't be a chimp or stay off of ladders. I don't know. Don't go to the zoo.
Yeah. I thought my son was just calling me old again. I didn't realize this was a real thing that people talk about that I have no clue.
Now you're on the inside.
Yeah. Look back at your experience. How have you seen gossip destroy an individual or, say, tear down a church?
I've definitely seen it hurt people. I remember in particular, this is sort of an interesting story, and it got me in a little bit of trouble. But I had I was pastoring full time, and someone came to me and they shared their hurt, and something had been very unkind had been said and was being passed around about the way they kept their home or something like that. It was embarrassing and hurtful, and I don't remember all the details. That's all I'll say. But I knew that it came out of, I did a little detective work, and it came out of this small group that was meeting. And so I showed up at the small group unannounced with my Bible. And I said, hey, you know, guys, I want to meet with y'all. And I had my Bible, and I did a Bible study with them, and it was on gossip. And they were not too happy with me. And I just challenged them all on what was going on. And there was a couple of them that were mad at me for years. They got over it eventually, I think. At least we interacted and stuff. But I was just trying to set a tone like, man, I don't want that. You know, we have to be intentional.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly and deeply offended a person who's gossiping is when they get called out for gossiping. I had a guy in my office, and he was saying, well, we just don't appreciate you treating us like we're a bunch of gossips. And I said, how would you describe it? He's like, what do you mean? I said, okay, you've got a group of people that are upset. Let's call it group A is upset with person B. And group A is talking about person B.
Yeah.
And they're talking to everybody about person B, but they're unwilling to talk to person B about the thing that they're upset with. I said, in Scripture, how would you define that? How would you define what that is? Can you think of any other word except for gossip? That you're willing to talk about someone to anybody, but you're not willing to talk to the someone that you have a problem with.
Yeah.
And I said, can you think of any other word other than gossip? And he was like, well, no. And I said, isn't that what your group is doing? Well, I mean, okay, so you're upset that I'm treating you like a gossip, and yet you just admitted that you are a gossip.
Don't call me out on my sin.
Yeah.
I guess we don't like to be wrong, you know, and
no. Well, and
if you think I'm wrong, that's okay, but just keep it to yourself.
Right. Don't confront me. Don't convict me. When I shared this illustration of the friend circle thing, I had somebody come up to me, and they were mad at me because they were like, I know you were talking about us. And I was like, what are you talking about? They said, well, you said that when this inner circle, these people go camping together, and you know that we had this problem when we went camping. And I said, I also said that these people have their kids play together and they go bowling. I said, yes, camping was one of those activities that was listed. But if you're feeling convicted about something that you did on a camping trip, don't turn your guns at me.
Right.
It's like, you know, if you found yourself in that story, it's not because I'm following you around and listening in on your conversations. It's because maybe the Holy Spirit is convicting you of something that you actually did.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know why it seems to be more desirable to just defend ourselves. Yeah, I was talking about this from like the pastor side of things. I know where I can sometimes be guilty or have been guilty in the past is where, you know, there's some stress, right, because of the emotional interactions with people and all of that. And sometimes people are a little more complex to deal with, at least for my personality type, and I can joke. One of the ways of coping with that is through humor. And sometimes some of the joking that I engage in I'd be like, I probably shouldn't joke that way about that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You throw something out there that everybody else recognizes as well, that we all know to be true, but maybe you know a little too much,
right?
As to why it's like, really true.
Yeah. It's like it's like character assassination framed in the form of a somewhat humorous joke.
Yeah. Well, the problem is when you get a laugh from that, it's like it's
then
like
the oxytocin kicks in, and you're like we're really bonding now. How about I come up with some more?
Well, and then your brain logs that for future reference. That that hit pretty well, and I'm going to use that again. I've done that as well, or I've made an anonymous reference that everybody in the whole church knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, what? I just said something about this can happen. I didn't say who it was. And they're like, we all know you're talking about Bob.
Yeah.
Again, we're picking on Bob.
Poor Bob.
That way nobody knows exactly who we're talking about. I know that I personally have seen the effects of gossip in my church here recently. You know this about me. We had a conversation about a year ago there in that very office. Because I sought you out because my wife and I, we were struggling. We had gotten separated, and 2025, it was an interesting year for me. We had gotten separated, and it wasn't because of any infidelity. There wasn't any major. It's like there was no domestic violence or nobody was injured or but there were issues that forced us apart for a time, and it was amazing to me how it didn't matter how upfront and honest we were with our church. And I want to let you know, I've always been a pretty upfront and honest guy.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather somebody be dealing with the truth than the blanks that get filled in. We even wrote a 3-page letter, and we stood in front of the church and read the letter and admitted the things that were done and why we were separated. So we made all of that available, and yet it still turned into the rumor mill of, well, perhaps maybe Keith is no longer above reproach because there's obviously something going on. There's a moral failure here. There's got to be some kind of infidelity. It's like, and I was like, no, we told you what happened. We told you. Even after sharing the truth, it got spun into incredible things. And I couldn't, number one, I mean, instant anger, right? How dare you?
Right.
You weren't there. What are you telling people? How, but then after that, it was just bewilderment. I was like, why? Why do you feel the need to make it more than what it is? Why does it have to be so much more controversial?
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it was malice based. I think maybe there are some people that there's always going to be some people that want to see you get knocked down a notch because that makes them feel better about their position, or maybe as a pastor, they want to humanize you more or something, or maybe it's just I never really liked that guy because he said this one thing, and now I know why, because he must be a wife beater or this or that. But I couldn't believe how it got spun into something that was completely out of left field. I said, even though we were like, we told you what happened, but that didn't seem to matter.
Well, it can feel like, in a way, as you were describing that, the word abandonment comes to mind, because it's like, we're supposed to have each other's back, right? That's the ideal, right? That's the bullseye as believers. We're supposed to be loving each other, hoping for the best for each other, right?
Right.
Believing all things, hoping all things, enduring in love toward each other. And then this happens, and it can be discouraging because you're like, you don't have my back at all, and hurtful,
Yeah, absolutely.
For some reason, we like to see our heroes fall. I don't understand that.
Yeah, and we're so quick to believe. It's almost like a grade book in high school. A 0 does so much more damage to your grade than a 100 does to improve your grade.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter how many good things we do. Help this person. And that was the thing that was most shocking to me, is some of the worst reactions were coming from some of the people I had poured the most into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are people that man, when it comes to pastoring, you think of, okay, yeah, you're there when they're struggling. You're there to help them. You're answering their questions. You're pulling them up out of the mud. You're doing all these things to minister to them. And they're the ones that are so quick to believe the lie about you. I guess part of that just felt like such a betrayal. It was just like, man, I've done all
betrayal,
this for you. You couldn't just give me the benefit of the doubt.
Maybe it's fear.
You couldn't just believe the best about me.
Is it fear in us? Is it, like you said already, it makes us feel better about the junk in our own life? Or is it just, I don't know if it's like fear driven. See, I knew it. I knew that, he wasn't perfect,
Yeah. I know that you went through a similar struggle, and ended up in a different. You ended up on a different path than what me and my wife ended up on. But
Yep.
you were pastoring a church when your marriage fell apart,
Mm-hmm.
and what impact did that have? I mean, did you lose a lot of people? Did you have to get up in front of everybody and try to clear up some of the ridiculousness that was going on? I mean, what was your experience in that?
Well, as you know, kind of just from a little bit, from what you went through, when you're going through something like that, it's super hard emotionally for obvious reasons, because I had been married for a number of years the first time, like 25 years. Your life is blown up. And so, the dust is settling, but also you kind of feel like your career is over, you know? And so I worked with the leadership team. I had a great leadership team at the time. They were all very supportive, and I took a couple of months off, and I was actually preparing to just resign and step down, and I didn't have any idea what I was going to do. And in time, the church asked me to not resign, to please come back and continue leading. There was a few people who left, and that was hurtful. It took me a while to kind of work through that and just let that go. It wasn't a situation where I wanted things to end at that time. Didn't. It was a surprise to me, and it was a devastating thing. It was a shock. It was a shock to me and my kids. I came home from a business trip doing some church planning stuff, and found myself on the beginning of a new life. And I'm sure, as a matter of fact, if I reflect on it, I think I learned during that time, maybe, at least it was cemented, that as a leader, at any given moment, somebody's talking about you. And it's usually not nice. So it's kind of like, just do your best and try to be right with the Lord, and try not to focus on the untrue things that are being passed around.
So you came to the realization that it doesn't matter in good times or bad. If you're in a position of leadership, you are the topic of private conversations that don't include you.
Absolutely.
Just
and
continuously.
That might sound jaded, or I don't know, I hope not, but maybe I just am, just because of, experience. But it's like you kind of slap on a bullseye in a way,
Yeah.
and
just expect it.
It's going to happen. You're going to because people are people. Most of those people, though, that left years ago, it's been a number of years ago now. What is that? 2011, 2010 and 11. So
yeah.
It's been a while, and God's been really good to me since then. But I think I did develop, going through all of that gossip as part of that, developed a strength in me, to just, like, when you walk around and people think you're an abuser, or you're this or you're that, and you're like, man, that's not true. But when you start trying to defend yourself to the gossip, it feels like, yeah, right. We've heard that before.
Yeah.
And so
you're just getting sucked down to that level.
When you got to start defending yourself, then, which is our human tendency, then it's almost like you're confirming the falsehoods. And so it was like, I'm just going to be quiet and try to let my life be my defense. And I've shared that with others over the years, working with them. There's this thing that happens when these kind of situations we're talking about with relationship. I call it the circling of the wagons. People start circling. That's an old West thing, where when the Indians were attacking, the settlers would circle their wagons as a form of mobile defense against the enemy.
Yeah.
And people will do that, but they do that by sharing information. They circle their wagons, and they start drawing like-minded people, and they create an echo chamber.
I got to recruit my team of people that are on my side. And
social media is a lot of that today. It's a lot of wagon circling.
Man, how dangerous is social media when it comes to the gossip thing? I had to flat out tell somebody there is absolutely no biblical way for you to deal with conflict if you're involving social media. Matthew 18 tells, go to your brother. And if he repents, then you can be restored. If he doesn't, then you go get a spiritually wise brother or sister to go with you, and the two of you go back again. If he still doesn't repent, you can take it before the church. If he doesn't relent at that point, then you can say, okay, fine, go with God, and you disassociate with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Never in there is there anything about go on to social media and gather your team of supporters that are only going to hear your side, that are only, I mean,
and quote a bunch of information that was just passed down from one monkey to another, and no one knows where it came from, and it goes both ways. I'm not picking sides with it. It's just that the gossip. It's just untruth.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you have to deal with this in your professional counseling, but as a pastor, I think all pastors end up doing some level of counseling, whether even if it's lay counseling. And one of the things I've had to tell people is, if you're going through this struggle, and it doesn't matter if it's a marriage struggle, or if it's a struggle with a friend, or your kids are going through something, I always tell them the same advice. I said, you have got to get your dirty laundry off social media.
Mm-hmm.
Even these cryptic posts about, I really need people's support because I'm really going through it right now. And then you always have people, oh, what's going on? And, I get you do need support from people. You do need support from a good friend or a wise counselor or a mentor, but do that one-on-one. Don't do that across a internet platform where you get spectators, because I guarantee you, if you're doing that, you are creating division. There are going to be people that are going to take your side. There are going to be people that are going to take the other side. And all you've done is you've just packed the stadium with spectators that are going to feel free to shout whatever they want to shout, and it's not going to make anything better in your situation whatsoever. But yeah, it's so dangerous because it just breeds that. And I think, I'm not, it's funny. I've had to spend more time on social media in the last 3 weeks than I have probably in my entire life, because we're doing this podcast thing. And in order to get it out there, you've got to put it out on social media, but I don't want to get sucked into that world. I hate the social media world simply because I've seen the damage that it does. So many people use it as a replacement to real relationships. You going to a Christian brother or sister and saying, hey, here's what I'm going through, and they can even help you get the log out of your eye, right?
Sometimes when I'm really bored, Keith, I'll go on to Instagram and I'll look through people's comments and see if I can find the most hateful one. Yeah, I do. And then I'm like, oh, you get my award. That's the most hateful thing I've heard said today. So it's a sad thing.
There's a pastor friend of mine that has a different calling than I do. He feels part of his calling is being a social media truth
teller. Social media prophet
or something. Yeah, social media prophet. And so he's always going on and he's posting. A lot of times it's verses, Bible verses, which I don't have a problem with, but a lot of times it's opinions and it's this and that. And there is one guy. There's one guy that always responds. So the pastor I know is very, very right wing, very conservative, and there's always one guy that is very left wing that always responds to his posts. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times I just scroll past, but whenever this guy posts, I pause and I look, are there any comments yet? No. Okay, fine. Then I scroll. If there are, I open them up to see, has this other guy commented? Because they're back and forth is so...
It's like looking at an accident on the freeway. And maybe that's part of the reason we're drawn to gossip, right? You're like, oh, I know I shouldn't look. I should mind my own business, but
Yeah. I even asked him one time, I said, man, why haven't you blocked this guy? I think I asked him, I said, how are you guys friends on Facebook? And he goes, oh, trust me, we're not friends. But yet,
world? Yeah.
It's like he's watching for every time you post, and he's got to post some counterpoint and it goes back. It's like,
yeah, who's Sherlock Holmes without Moriarty, right? It's like they need each other to exist.
Yeah. Without the other, they would cease to be meaningful or something. I don't know, but yeah, I'm there with you. It's like I can't help but look, and it's like it's the draw to what's going to be said and how off the rails is going to be. But man, it's so damaging and so divisive.
It is.
Social media is well, I was about to say necessary evil. I'm not even sure how necessary it really is.
No, it's just a good way for me not to have all
But
the pictures of my kids and grandkids on my phone, you know. I was thinking about the question at the onset, you know, like when does gossip become, or when does a prayer request turn into gossip? And one of the things that popped into my head was, you know, we have this thing in like counseling, we call it the self-disclosure, where like you might tell a personal story to like a client, but there's rules with it because, you know, the person doesn't come in to just hear all your great personal stories, right? So it's the question we're supposed to ask ourselves before we utilize self-disclosure
uh-huh.
is this for the benefit of the client or is this for the benefit of me? And you can probably see where I'm going with this. When it comes to prayer requests, I think maybe a good rule of thumb, you know, that I would like to use for myself is what I'm sharing, is it for the healing of the person that I'm praying for?
Right.
Or is it for some other perverse desire in myself? Or is it my flesh
Yeah.
or the enemy working to cause trouble?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also putting yourself in that position. And this is something that is also amazing to me. The biggest gossips I know are the people that are the most concerned about being judged by other people. And that dichotomy is interesting to me. It's incredible that the people that are the most likely to make snap judgments, spread untruths or half truths, are the people that are the most sensitive and the most I can't believe she said that about me. I can't, it's they are so deeply hurt and offended if they're ever talked about. And that I think sometimes we get blind to our own sin.
Mm-hmm.
We get blind to the things that we're the guiltiest of.
Like getting trapped in a kind of a self-righteous or self-defensive mindset, you know, like we're thinking maybe everybody's doing what we're doing. I like, you know, have you ever like, if you have to double check to make sure your speakerphone has been shut off before you say a thing, you know, to
Yeah.
someone, you might
Yeah.
want to second guess whether you're going to say that or not. That might be
Right.
telling. You just hang up with a
Or
person and you're like, well, hold on, I want to say something. Let me make sure that speaker's off.
or if you send a text and then have you ever sent the wrong message to the wrong recipient? You know,
Yeah.
we had a guy one time. There was about 6 men on a group chat, and we were talking about, hey, we're going golfing this weekend or something. And 5 minutes after our conversation ended, we get a text from this guy that says, "Love you, babe."
Uh-huh.
and of course all the guys jumped on it. They're like, we love you too, sweetheart, and all that. He was like, oh, sorry, that was for my wife or whatever. But if you've ever like sent a text and then had that moment of panic, like, oh crap, did I just send that to the wrong person?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And if that hits your mind, then maybe the question is, should you have sent it to anyone? If the wrong person finding out what
Right.
you just said is so panic inducing, then should you have said it to anyone?
Right.
And that I think that self-reflection. But you were saying something about defensiveness and how we get so defensive. And I said this in another episode because my dad and I were talking about some of the things we've heard from church people.
Mm-hmm.
That episode's called "The Church People Say the Darndest Things."
I'll look forward to that one. Yeah.
You might recognize some of the stories. Not that you're in it, but
Hopefully
you
I
might
didn't
know who
say
we're
any of
talking
these
about.
darndest things.
But we were talking about defensiveness, and I heard something a long time ago that I've really tried to latch onto, that I'm not very good at, but I try to get better at. Is there's never a reason for defensiveness.
Mm.
You either did it and you have no defense,
Mm-hmm.
or you didn't do it and you need no defense.
Yep. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, when we're being gossiped about, I finally had to come to the point when my wife and I were going through our thing, and there was all this stuff that was getting spread around, and people were coming to me, well, do you know what this person's saying about you? And I finally just got to the point where I said, you know what? It doesn't matter. I said, the people who know me know that that's not true. The people that don't know me, or the people that believe that might be true, will never get to know me, and it won't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so they're the ones. I don't care what they think about me. And or I had one time, I had a lady sitting in my office telling me, well, you said in your sermon, she was accusing me of saying something in my sermon that was so offensive to her.
Hmm.
And I told her, I didn't say that. Yes, you did. I heard you. And I said, this is the modern age. I said, every one of my sermons are recorded. They're put on YouTube.
Let's go to the
And I
tape.
said, if you want to, you can go back and you can listen to that sermon and you can find out that I did not say what you're accusing me of saying. And she said, yes, you did. And I finally just told her, I said, the truth is out there. It's available for you. I said, I am no longer going to address that accusation. And it just shut her down because I just refused to participate in the accusation because I just said, I need no defense here. I didn't do that. And there's proof and it's available to you. I had to shift it to, why is it that you're wanting to pretend I said that? What is it that has you so upset that you're willing to manufacture something that I said to be mad at? What are you really mad at?
Yeah, what are you protecting? Yeah.
Yeah. It was a much longer conversation in the end, but it was in that moment where I was like, man, yeah, I need no defense.
It's like when my dog tries to attack the meter reader that comes up on his moped once a month to look at the water thing, and it's just like, calm down, he's just checking the water, right? But she's got the lay of the land, and she's going to eat him because he's dangerous, right? She sees something very different.
Why are you so angry?
Yeah, who's that mighty knight coming to destroy us all on his red moped?
I mean, if you had somebody that came to you and said, okay, pastor, or okay, counselor, I'm really dealing with these negative, these hurtful, these feelings of betrayal and anger and all this stuff because there's gossip being said. How do we combat that? What do we do about that?
That's a really good question. And I pause because there's not going to be a solution that removes the problem.
Sure.
Right.
There's no eradication.
Yeah, there's no extermination of, at least not on, maybe in the life after life that'll be something we don't deal with, right? But at least I'm counting on that. But it's more of a strategy for managing the hurt, I would say, that I would look toward. And for me, then I would start looking at, okay, what does the word say to us? Look at Jesus, right? He was the Son of God. He raised people from the dead. He fed the thousands with one kid's Lunchable, and they called him the son of Satan, and they badmouthed him and accused him of all manner of things. Yeah. So he's acquainted with our struggles. Probably the advice I actually real time have given many people who are experiencing it is, and this is where I would utilize a little self-disclosure, like I was saying earlier, and say, you know what? You can't control what other people say and do. Just let your life be your best defense so that people who do know you and do love you and care about you, they will see your life and live. It's like I can look at the life of Christ and say, yeah, well, they said these things about him, and people still say things about Jesus that aren't true. But people who do these things, they don't die for me. They don't love me like he does. They don't, bring transformation and healing like he did. And so his life is an example for us to follow. At least that gives me something to do and to focus on. I'll let my life be my defense, and then whoever's saying those things, they can keep on or give up, because people are like, nah. That would be ideally in my hope, the ideal situation. If it was like me, they'd be like, yeah, I just can't see Troy doing that. Sorry.
Yeah, I think for me, the advice that I've given is there's absolutely nothing wrong with responding to the truth that is hidden in there. And I think there's always a nugget of truth. If the gossip is, oh, well, Keith and Melissa got separated because Keith is an abuser. It's like, okay, well, there's some truth and there's some lie. The truth is that, yes, there are some things that Keith is guilty of, that Keith is not just the victim. And I went through that phase where I felt like I was the victim and it was all her problem. And, and we've been in counseling for a long time and learning that, okay, yeah, I'm just as guilty as she is of different things, just as guilty. So the truth in the gossip was that Keith had a part to play in that. And I have to accept that truth, and I can respond to that truth. What I don't have to respond to is the part that's the lie. That Keith was a wife beater.
Right.
No, I wasn't. So I don't have to be offended by that. That's not true. I can leave that aside, and I can respond to the truth only, and let that be something that raises something in me. Also, I've also told people, I said, especially we're going back to the social media thing again. If somebody's saying something that isn't true about you on social media, does it do any good to engage in that? No. I've told people, you have to be willing to take the risk that your reputation takes a hit online. The moment you engage, now you're taking the risk that your character takes a hit. Reputation is what men think of you. Character is what God knows of you. And I am much more concerned about what God knows about me than what men think
Yeah.
about me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be willing to take the risk. I'm not going to engage in lies and slander that is thrown on social media. Is it untrue? Yes. Is it hurtful? Yes. Is it unfortunate that they're doing that? Yes. But me engaging in that's me putting my reputation first.
Mm-hmm.
And my character says, I'm not, just because you behave a certain way doesn't mean I have to.
Yeah.
Right. And I think so many people, I heard on a TV show something that resonates with me. Too many people are judgmental instead of curious. Be curious,
Mm-hmm.
not judge. Oh, hey. All right, let's turn that into our pop culture reference of the day. If you can tell me what TV show that comes from, be the first one to respond on our Patreon page. We'll send you a nog mug or something. But be curious, not judgmental. Where does that come from? Because I think too many of us are so quick to just, we don't know what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in their life, but we're going to fill in the blank and we're going to decide something about them.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to, hey, what's really going on? What are they dealing with? So yeah,
That's good advice. I like that. That's taking ownership. What you were saying, it jogged something loose in my mind that sometimes I'll share with folks. And I'll say, just imagine 3 boxes in front of you and each one's labeled. And one is me, the other one is others, and the other one says God on it. And when I deal with these things that come at me, I have to sort this stuff out. What is mine? Right? What is mine to own? I have to do something with this. That goes in the me box, which is what I like what you were saying about that. And then there's the other person box. That's like they've got to own that. I can't do anything about that, right? And then there's those some things, some places that only God can go, right? He has the power and the presence to change a human heart or make it rain tomorrow if we need it, or being able to identify those things can help. And one thing too, I'm thinking if anybody's like getting involved in ministry in any way and they're newer at it, just to normalize the fact that it's going to happen and you're going to experience it. Like buckle up, but don't let it keep you from doing good things,
Yeah, you can choose when to be offended. I've always told my kids, I said, nobody has the ability to offend you. People can insult you. They can do all kinds of things to insult you, but only you decide when you're offended. These people that are saying these things, they're spreading this gossip or whatever. If it was a total stranger talking about somebody else, you could choose not to be offended. You'd be like, okay, whatever, I don't care. If you have that ability, you can have that ability in your own life. And I think that's what helps protect us from the hurt and the betrayal, is identifying, okay, are they saying something true about me? Then that's something that I need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not saying something true about me, then I can choose not to be offended by that.
Yeah.
And in today's world, you look at Jesus. Jesus surrounded himself with 12, and then he got really close with 3. Jesus, and then he had thousands of followers. But the thousands of followers were the ones that were there to see what was going to happen. They wanted to see the miracle. They wanted to get fed by the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. They weren't there for the close, intimate relationship. They were there to see the show. I mean, they wanted to hear the sermons. They wanted to witness the miracles. They wanted to, get fed by the teacher. But Jesus wasn't worried about what the crowd was saying about him. He asked Peter, he said, who do people say that I am? And Peter said, oh, well, people say this. He's like, okay, he dismissed that immediately. And he said, okay, now who do you say that I am? If Jesus, who is capable of everything, limited himself to 12 close friends and 3 really intimate close friends, why is it that we think we need 500-600 followers on Facebook and we care what they say? I mean, do you have a close relationship with 2 or 3 people? And do you have a outer circle of 10 to 12 that you live life with? then be content with that and let the crowd say whatever they want. I guess I'm just trying to think of how do I armor my how do I armor my heart against some of this hurt and betrayal of what people are saying? It's like, well, I don't have to care what people are saying. As long as
No.
God knows and those that are closest to me know.
Just know we have to give an account for what we say and try to do our best to stay with the Lord. I was just, thinking the way you said that about the followers. I'm like, it's kind of interesting that we even call it that, like followers. I have, my followers.
I have this many followers. I'm a social media influencer. Please, you're just trying to get, you're just trying to get a free dinner from a restaurant.
How do I unfollow myself?
Yeah, that's what I told my wife. I said, listen, honey, I've committed to doing this podcast thing for 2 years, and if I stop 2 years from now with the same 7 followers that I have right now, and 5 of them are my immediate family, so be it.
Who cares? It'll be fun.
Yeah, this is for me and Logan.
We'll leave them something to watch when we're dead and gone, right? Let's go visit Grandpa on YouTube. On the YouTube. You ever notice I was thinking about like earlier gossip? You ever notice like it never goes like the positive way where like we're sharing all these positive things about people that just aren't true? Like, man, like Keith is the smartest man alive.
Yeah. Because again, that wouldn't attract.
That's not any
that would
fun.
Attract the crowd. Yeah, that's not any fun.
He's so great. He's really nice.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, we are so quick to believe the negative, and so short to share the encouragement.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Troy. I want to thank you for being for having this conversation with me. I think if nothing else, it gives everybody an opportunity to know that it's going to happen. It's going to happen in your church. It's going to happen in your workplace. It's going to be hurtful. It's going to be untrue. It's going to be all those things. And yet you don't have to let it tear you down. You don't have to let it destroy who you are. You can find your identity in who you are in Christ. And what God thinks of you is the thing that's most important.
Yep. Play to an audience of one, as somebody said years ago.
Yeah. Well, that does it for this episode of Sundays in Side Quest. I want to thank my guest, Troy Pound, for joining me and taking time out of his day and his little
Fortress of Solitude.
Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah.
So that'll do it for this episode. We hope you join us the next one. He saw a meme one time that said all toilets are connected through the same plumbing system. So when you sit down on the toilet, you're plugged into the matrix along with everybody else who's sitting on the toilet at the time.
They left that part out of the movie.
Right.
I'm not. What's in there? You read in the blue pill. I don't even want to know.